my field is in recreation and leisure studies and looking at play and wonder and curiosity. And when I saw the film, I was delighted because you exemplify so many of those qualities. And I wonder, just to start off, if you could talk a little bit about the role of wonder in your work.
I don't take my life as play at all. I take it very seriously. That what I'm doing is to revolutionize the future of mankind, humankind. And so the sense the word play doesn't come into it at all. This is not fun and games. I don't play at all. And so the role of you mentioned the role. What is the role of
Wonder.
wonder? Wonder has a. I don't separate wonder from achievement at all. Achievement, accomplishment, and wonder are one thing. Uh, if I if I'm interested, let's say one day I thought I would take up boxing after gymnastics because I was too injured from 20 years of gymnastics. I wondered about boxing and I got into it, and I got into it very seriously. And the wonder brought me there, but it was not the wonder that made me achieve what I did. So wonder is a an impetus for a subject, but it's not the spirit that brings you through the accomplishment of that subject. So wonder in the sense of playfulness, um, frivolity. No, there is none of that in my life. There's no frivolousness. There's no, shall we say, play in the sense of playing because you're just recreating something. I don't recreate anything. When I take on something, I take it on very seriously, and I want to be the best in the world at it.
Hmm.
And so that is, I take my life very seriously, and I hope everyone here does, because life is a gift. And if you don't make the most of your life, if you don't achieve the impossible and break the chains of your own frame of mind, the limitations of your framework in your mind, then you can very easily waste your life. And I refuse to waste my life. And so play in the sense of recreation, frivolity, just having a good time, no, that's not a part of my life. I do not have just a good time. So I take things very seriously.
How do you derive your designs? We were talking about in the movie, you talked about the tardigrade,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps you could share a little bit about that.
First, I ask myself, what would nature do if nature were given this problem? Whatever it might be, whether it's a small house or the tallest tower in the world or a bridge across the Strait of Gibraltar or whatever it might be, a floating city, which I've done all these things up. The first question I ask is, what would nature do? How would nature solve this problem if it were given these challenges? And so that's my first introduction into a journey that is fascinating and remarkable. And so that spirit of inquiry comes from the study of nature. For instance, my parents' house here in Berkeley, that came from my parents wanted something indestructible, safe, a cocoon from the world, something private, away from the rustle of the everyday world. And so I looked at what is the most indestructible creature in the world, which happened to be the tardigrade, and then started to ask what is it about the tardigrade that makes it that I could apply to architecture. And so it came from that kind of inquiry. And so nature is very much a part of my mentality, because I'm always asking, what would nature do if it were given this problem? And also, what are the principles of nature that I can apply every day? One of the most important things that I think would make us all a lot healthier and guard against sickness is the strength to weight ratio. That is, everything in nature is the strongest it can be and the lightest it can be. So if you take that very seriously in your everyday life, as I do, then I'm going to be as strong as I can be and as light as I can be. And once you're in that state, it guards against sickness, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, whatever you might, and a surfeit of other maladies. So so these principles in nature, when applied to everyday life, that's what I'm interested in. How do you apply it? Don't just talk the talk. You got to walk the walk, and you have to be fierce about it. This is not fun and games. This is very serious.
So, building on that, how do you apply it in your life? You were telling me some interesting things a
Yeah.
little bit earlier.
When I write from the left to right, right to left, left to right, right to left, left to right. I write in a continuous back and forth fashion. So what does that do? Well, okay, that's interesting. What I found out that it does, oh, first of all, I did it because I noticed that when your eyes move from left to right, they jerk back. Think about it. You go from left to right, your eyes jerk back. Left to right, your eyes jerk back. Well, if you are at all an athlete, you will know that any jerky motion is very it robs you of energy. So I thought, why not soothe your eyes and do what's naturally seems to make sense by writing left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left. I found out later that that's how speed reading works. And that's also a Houston-based surgeon, eye surgeon, told me that that will also make your eyes, the muscles of your eyes, much less fatigued. And then another psychologist said that that also equalizes the left and right side of your brain. Because as you write from the right to left, you have to use the right side of your brain because you have to be spatially aware of the space of each word that you're writing. So, okay. But remember too that in college, when this first started, um, think about people making fun of you. Well, that's crazy. You write from left to right. Are you crazy? Yeah. Yeah. So what? I'm crazy. Well, I'm going to do it. You see, part of the message that I have today is that you have to stick to your own commitment in finding solutions to everyday challenges. And one is just the simple fact of reading and writing. Just observe things and you will revolutionize the way we think and act. And that's part of it is that I just question things.
You were telling me a little bit earlier about that you eat a little bit differently
Yeah.
now.
8 years ago, I thought that was a crazy idea, and I put it aside thinking that's ridiculous. And then a year later, I started researching it, and I found that there's no downside to eating everything. It actually makes a lot of sense. So I started it. It took me 3 months to adjust to it. And it's a very, very natural rhythm because your body rests every other day. And so you digest your food very well. And you think, well, how am I going to have energy? Now remember, 9 years of world-class competitive boxing. I was eating every other day the whole time, or most of the time. And I found out that your energy does not come from eating a lot of food. It comes from another source. It comes from your determination, your motivation to accomplish something. So there are so many myths in this world. And when I started eating every other day, I started listening to people's conversation. Every other conversation was about where to eat, what kind of food. Oh, this place is so much better than that place. It's cheaper than this. The quality of food is better. How much time we waste talking about food and the act of cooking food, the act of preparing food, the act of going to eat food, the act of buying food. And so, all of these things, one has to question and find ways to be better, to question the whole nature of everyday things and find out real solutions to them. So eating every other day is, I think, a wonderful thing. You also you defecate half the time, much less. You're exploiting the planet half of what you do normally. I save 1,100 hours a year by eating every other day. I calculate that. 1,100. Now, what could you do with 1,100 hours? That's a lot of hours to be productive. Yeah. And so I compose music. I design buildings. I write books. I observe things. I do a lot of different things because I have an extra 1,100 hours. And the moral issue of me robbing the planet 50% less propels me forward morally. And you say, well, how can you? But I don't see anybody taking this seriously. Maybe you ought to try it. And the idea of, oh, I can't do that. You better watch out for I can't do this, I can't do that, because that's going to frame your whole life, and forever you're going to be much lesser than you could have.
Yeah.
You will live with much less, in a much less potential way than you could have, because because we tend to live with an I can't attitude, and to me that is the enemy.
You've talked about self-imposed limitation.
Yep.
And I actually have two questions about this. One has to do with, I want to hear a little bit more about that and your perspective on that. The other is, how does the issue of constraint in some way or limitation affect creativity?
Yeah, self-imposed limitation. That's our biggest challenge. That is the enemy. Self-imposed limitations, because we don't question our assumptions and expectations. We don't question it enough. We don't push through the challenges that we're faced with every day. So we limit ourselves with a framework, and we become lesser and lesser of a human being. Our potential is robbed, and we are demeaned by our own attitudes. And so we live far less than we're capable of living. And you mentioned the second one.
Constraint and creativity.
Well, constraint and creativity. Creativity is a motivational force. You have to want it. It doesn't just come on, I'll just sit here and a song will come to mind, or a sketch might come up, and or I'll think of something. No, it doesn't happen that way, at least not for me. You have to sit down and you have to push yourself to be creative. You have to want to be creative. It's a desire. It is not just a serendipitous, emotional feeling. Oh, I'm creative today. No, that is the biggest myth in the world. It's a lot of work to be creative, and you have to dedicate your life to it. Yeah. So you must be the motivator, and you must, and through your motivation, you can share that with other people. Because I think none of us will disagree that this world needs to be a lot more motivated. Because I see indolence, laziness as one of our biggest enemies. Because we reduce ourselves to laziness, recreation. Oh, let's just go through the day and be comfortable, and it's convenient. And let's take the car and mail the letter a block away and ride back. We become victims of comfort and ease and convenience and quickness. And that is destroying this planet, by the way. Those four items are what is at the root of destroying our future and our health and ourselves, our mentality. So it takes motivation. It takes you taking a stand, a commitment for living a way that is true to yourself, and disregarding what anybody ever says. How many? My mother's here today. I'm not afraid to say that my upbringing was very difficult. They wanted a doctor or a lawyer. They wanted someone who would fit in, would be a nice, complacent, accomplished person in the conventional way. And what they got was me. And And I'm thinking, there are many fights, physical fights even, and my mother will acknowledge that. My mother and father, it was not this. I was not brought up in a nurtured environment where, oh, Eugene, be the best you can be, yeah, be unique. Oh no, no, it's what kind of a person did we create? What I gave birth to this kind of person. They were shamed. My parents were shamed for many decades of my life. And I know she's probably embarrassed to hear this, but I'm not afraid to say it because it's the truth, and the truth is often very hard and painful to hear. And so today I want to put away the pleasantries and the politeness of truth because it can be very hurtful and very difficult to accept. But that's part of my life. You have to have the guts to face the truth, and that is what I love to do every day.
Would you describe yourself then as a nonconformist?
Of course, I'm a nonconformist, but only because not because I want to be a nonconformist, but because I want to question the meaning and substance of what is, what we have created in society, in our culture, and other cultures. I spend half my time, or not half, but I spent a good deal of time in China, and I am disgusted by the Chinese society, by the culture, what it's become. And I don't particularly support it. So there are challenges everywhere. That's just the way I am. And by Chinese means, I'm very successful. But when it comes right down to, is Dr. Tssui, does he fit in? Is he one of us? Oh no. No, he's not one. He's from the planet Mars, or something like that. Yeah, and they've even said you are not Chinese. You're an alien from another planet. So, but they say it in a nice way. But that's the way it is. Fine, if that's the way you think, then so be it. But I'm not. That's not going to interfere with what I want to set out to do.
I'm wondering about if you see a difference between excellence and perfection.
Perfection. What is perfection? I find that that the concept of perfection needs to be questioned. Perfection is what? What are you perfecting? To me, perfection, maybe the closest thing is skill in action, and I think that the root meaning of the word perfection comes from skill in action. And to me, it's irrelevant. Perfection is what is important is excellence. That you must reach for excellence in everything you do. I mean everything you do. Not just your profession, your teaching, your writing. No, but everything you do in life, try to be the best at it. Try to be excellent with it. And that keeps you going forward.
And I wonder if you would share about your lineage and how you perceive your lineage.
Well, I would say that I inherited very much from my mother. I inherited a lot from my mother. My mother was a triple team captain in sports when she was younger in China in the 40s. The 40s. That's when girls weren't even supposed to play sports, and she was the captain of the basketball, the volleyball, and the soccer team. So I inherited that kind of drive. She's also a Chinese opera singer, Beijing opera singer and dancer, and a physical therapist. All those things I inherited from my mother, and I certainly didn't inherit the things she wanted to, the things she wanted me to be, a nice, complacent part of society. No, I'm not that. So I'd say from my mother and father. My father was an engineer, so I inherited the 3D thinking, the ability to draw, mechanical drawing and drafting well. So I'd say that I inherited much from my parents. But being Chinese, I am not proud of being Chinese actually, because of the society, the culture. It's very image driven. It's very superstitious driven. and I am against those things. I think I have much of a closer kinship with the Mongolian culture. And when I've been to Mongolia twice, I just came back about 6 weeks ago. I'm wearing Mongolian boots. And for instance, why are these boots shaped the way they are? Because when you walk, you don't destroy the environment around you. You don't destroy the grass because the tips are curved up. So they have and Genghis Khan also was the first person in history to have laws against environmental destruction. And also the forms and colors and shapes and the boldness of Mongolian culture really appeals to me. So I think that I'm actually much more Mongolian than and then when I walked into Mongolia, they said, "Oh no, you're not Chinese. In fact, you look like Genghis Khan's best friend." And so I'll say right now that the reason why I have two S's in my name is because I was, now this may sound very far-fetched, but I one day on winter solstice in China, 2010, I was woken by a voice. It said that I'm Temujin, which is the birth name of Genghis Khan, and said, Eugene, I won't go into this very deeply, but just one of the things he said of the three was that you have to add an S to your name because the double S has magic power to it, and you need that power to achieve what you set out to do. And so I looked at it and I said, well, that's interesting. Who's got double S? Picasso, Matisse, Sid Charisse, a lot of other people. I thought, that's interesting. So I thought about it for a while and I said, yeah, I like the way that looks. And so that's why I began to put a double S in my name. And I'm going to legally change it too, much to the chagrin of my mother and father. But so what? I don't really care about that. So so that's how the double S came. I wanted to say that one of the most important points I think of my being here today for you, because you feel yourself as senior citizens getting on in age. Well, it's all your attitude and your research. People worry about as they get older, they worry about their energy levels, their balance, their bone structure, their muscle deterioration. Naturally, you get a little weaker. Well, do something about it. Don't be complacent. Don't be indolent. Research it. Find out, how do I get stronger? I was a world champion when I was 59 years old. 50. Last was 57. Sorry, 57 years old, and I was training with 19 and 22 and 23-year-olds, and pretty soon they began to see that age is just a number. If you are determined to do what you set out to do, it doesn't matter what age you are. And how quickly we become entrapped in the thinking that, oh, I'm old now, or I can't do this, I can't do that. Don't ever get caught in the attitude of I can't. That is your enemy. The attitude of I can't do this. I have had 500 interns from around the planet. And over the years, I've seen young people, very young people, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, or younger, high school people, who I've actually taken on some high school people. They already are starting to think, I can't do this, I can't do that. Oh, you can't do that. Well, what would my friends say? Well, who cares what your friends say? And what do you mean you can't do this? You have your whole life in front of you. And you've got to reach for your dreams, and don't let anybody get in the way of that. So don't just go through life being, oh yeah, it's wake up in the morning, okay, what do I have to do now? What have I been told what to do? No, don't ever live your life by someone else's standards. You have to live your life according to your own standard, and you make that standard very high. And you have the attitude that I am going to go out and I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and change the future of this planet. A case in point, my daughter-in-law, when my son, her husband, goes away on a business trip, she comes and stays with me, with the kids and her, my grandchildren, because she's afraid to be by herself. She's thinking some burglar or rapist is going to come in the house. Okay, so you know what? I hope a burglar and rapist does come in the house, because that'll give me an excuse to put that person's head through the wall. Why don't you grab for an opportunity, use it as an opportunity, not as don't be a victim. Don't be bullied by your own attitudes. Reach up, stand up, take a stand, commit yourself to something. Commit yourself to something greater than yourself. That's where happiness lies. When you have committed your life to something far greater than your own self. And that means changing the world, changing humanity. And so, you should think of danger as an opportunity. Don't be a victim. You know, you, you impose yourself on the world, because that's the only way it's going to change. And you don't change by playing the game. You change by making your own rules and imposing them on the world. And that is the way you're going to change the planet. You don't do it by being, oh, nice, oh, yes, polite, oh, whatever you say, sir, yes, we'll just do it, yes, well, I'll just be another businessman or another nice doctor, lawyer, whatever it is, whatever you want, okay, yeah, I'll give it to you. No, don't do that. You are your own person, and you need to take a stand, commit yourself to something. That is ageless. It doesn't matter how old you are. And you better take care of yourself, because if you really love life, you're going to find ways to live longer and stronger and be as light as and strong as you can. There's a billboard on the over the freeways not too long ago that said there's someone today that's going to live to 150 years old. Well, you be that person, because I am. And then my wife says, oh, but you're going to watch your children die and your grandchildren die? And so, yeah, I am. So what? Because I'm going to live, and if they don't take care of themselves, they're not. Well, that's too bad, because I am going to do what I set out to do, and I hope they have a dream too. And I hope they listen, they see my example and have the guts to be themselves. So that's what I want to share with you, that message, because you don't achieve anything, you don't have meaning in your life by just complacently going through life and doing what you're told. No, that is not what you must do. You must take a stand for doing something different, for being yourself, for bring some uniqueness to this world. God, we need so much of it. How many times do we see the next generation of people? What are they doing? They're shooting each other. They're looking at their iPhones. I refuse to have an iPhone. You take a stand for what is meaningful to you. I'd rather memorize my telephone numbers than have it put on a phone. Because when you don't use it, you lose it. You use your brain, you lose your brain cells. Frankly, from boxing, I've lost some. I've injured. I have some short-term memory loss, which I'm now replenishing. I said, okay, I'm quitting this because I do notice some short-term memory loss. Fine. Okay, so I'm going to rejuvenate my brain and be back to normal. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So, and the next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to go into wrestling, for gymnastics, boxing, wrestling. But my wife said, if you go on into wrestling, the divorce papers will be on your doorstep in a week. Because I missed having dinner with my daughter and wife for 9 years. Because dinner time was the time where you went to the gym, because right after work, you go right to the gym and you are in that ring and you are, getting pounded and you are dishing it out. And, it's scary. It's not. So when you say have fun, it's not fun. I don't do this for fun. I do this because it's something I want to achieve and because it's enjoyable. But, it's not recreation. I don't do things for recreation purposes. Yeah. I do things because I'm serious about it and because I want to learn about it and I want to be the best I can be at doing it.
A lot of what we talk about in the field of leisure has to do with intrinsic motivation. And I do see you as somebody who is very motivated intrinsically. Mm-hmm. In a sense, when I say you exemplify something, it's having to do with creativity, mm-hmm. and a certain approach to life, which does involve a lot of curiosity.
Yeah.
And a lot of wonder.
Yeah.
There's a great question here from the audience, which is, what gives you joy?
the challenge of what gives me joy is the challenge of doing the impossible, making the impossible possible. That gives me the greatest joy. I remember my parents when I graduated from high school. I didn't want to go to university. I didn't go to university. I just went out and with my drawings, I found work in an architecture firm. And they said, that's impossible. You have no degree, no experience. You're 19 years old. How are you going to go out and find work in an architecture firm? That's a high level profession. Well, the second architect I encountered hired me right then and there. I showed up the next day, and and that gave me a great deal of joy, making the impossible possible. And I think back, in 2003, 4, if you would have told me that you're going to be the 8-time champion of the world, I would have said, are you crazy? That is ridiculous. But you don't know. You never know what's going to happen next. And so, so you just have to move forward. And what brings me the greatest joy is making the impossible possible. And I have a lot of things I want to do now too. I'm writing a song. I want to make that song a great hit around the world. It's called Because I Can. And I'm writing that song right now. And I'm writing books, and there's a lot, and I'm inventing the Chinese game for learning Chinese because I think that's very much needed in this world. So I'm doing a lot of different things, and you say, well, geez, that's impossible. You can't do that. You can't do that and that and that. Why not? So if I'm alive, I'm going to do it. So yeah, what gives me joy is making the impossible possible.
If you build other houses, will they also be modeled on the tardigrade? Or would you find a different creature to base each house on?
I would never replicate anything twice. So any other house or building or high rise or commercial space I might do, it's not going to resemble anything that I've done before. And I can prove that because the two projects I have right now for San Pablo, California and San Diego don't resemble each other at all. And they're not even based on a organic, an organism. One building is suspended from these paired parabolic arches down a canyon. So it's suspended so it can swing. So in an earthquake, it gives and doesn't break apart in the shock wave of an earthquake. And it also lets breeze through the canyon come right through the house. It has a spiral ramp that goes 3 stories down. That spiral ramp acts as a conduit from the hotter part on the top, and so that the heat is drawn into the ground where it's cooler. So it's a passive solar. By the way, it has no air conditioning, heating, or ventilation at all. And that house is very different from the office that I'm building for myself now in San Pablo, California, which we're just about to get permits for, which is completely different and it is sort of based on what I found, the milkweed and the tree bark and the plants I found on the site, but not directly. So I don't repeat the same things ever. Just as nature doesn't repeat the same thing over and over again. I'm against replication, just add the repeated replication of something.
Huh.
So I would never do another fish house or a tardigrade house.
You mentioned in the movie that you can't really define success by the views of the people around you when you're doing something completely different. And so this is a question from me. I'm curious, how do you define success?
I don't need to define success. I don't. Success is when, again, I feel successful when I achieve the impossible. That's success to me. If you can create something that's never been done before and you make it happen, that is success.
As we age, it seems like many of us lose some of our energy and passion for life and for the things that once we felt so strongly about. How do you maintain that energy and passion?
Well, first of all, you ask yourself, why don't I have the motivation, the passion, the energy? Ask yourself that first, because in that question is the answer. You know, been told I'm aging, and therefore I will be more gentle on my body. I will do less. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do that. You see the framework that our minds get as we age, because society says as you age, you know, you're this and that and that. No, you defy that. You take a stand against that, and you say, I'm not listening to what society says. What any culture says, I'm doing what I think I need to do for myself. So if you lose muscle tissue and strength, well, then gain some. You know, go to the gym, research it, find out how you do gain muscle and strength. You need it. That's right. We all do. But, you know, age has nothing to do with that either. Look at the obese little kids that are around the planet. You know, look at the skinny little runts that we see around the planet. They don't know either. They're only 13 years old, 8 years old, whatever it might be, 18, 27. You know, they're in the same place you are, because they have challenges too. So as a person that's aging, it's irrelevant. Find out what you need to do to get stronger. Just go do it. You know, there's nothing special about aging. What's special is you got to find the answers for yourself and do it. You know, there are books it's all around you, especially in the United States. It'd be a lot harder in China, I tell you, or India. But in the United States, books are everywhere. Try it. You know, get the book on bodybuilding. Get some books on plyometrics. Get some books on competitors who have workout plans, and try it. It's just a matter of going out and doing it. It's not, oh, well, gee, I'm going to write this plan out, and okay, I'm going to follow this. If you do that, you're never going to follow it. You have to find the answers, and then that will motivate you to do it. Okay, so you're getting weak. All right, go and work out and find some way, but don't just go to the gym and do repetitive reps and weight training and stuff, because you're going to fall asleep. You need to find a competitive skill. I really think competition is great because it lets other people help you to excel. That's why I love competition. It helps others help you to excel. And so that drives you. You're not driven by, oh God, I got to do this weight routine again today. You're never going to get anywhere like that. You got to go out and say, okay, I'm going to participate in this MMA competition. And so what? I'm 70 years old. There's age groups. You know, I met an 80-year-old at the World Championships, an 80-year-old man. He said, "There's nobody in my age group." Well, and okay, I'll fight a 20-year-old. I don't care. I'm going to do this. I love that spirit. You know, you don't be confined by your age. Don't be confined by, oh, I'm just going to do some exercise. No, you've got to find something that's going to motivate you to stay with it for the rest of your life. And I tell you, doing reps at the gym is not going to do that. You've got to find something that's going to motivate you to be the best, to force you to excel at what you do. And once you do that, you'll be surprised at how good you become at that. So that's a little tip for everyone in this room. Don't just do an exercise routine. Find something you love to do and go out and do it. I don't know, skiing, whatever it might be. And you think, oh, well, I can't do boxing. I can't do MMA. I can't swim. Well, how can possibly swim in competition? Wrestling. Gee, I'm kind of interested in badminton, you know, but competing in it? No, I'm too old for that. No, listen to yourself. Listen to I can't. No, I'm too old for this. I'm too, it's too much. I don't have the time. What do you mean you don't have the time? You make your time. The time doesn't control you. You control it. And you make the time to do it. You know, I'm always asked that, Eugene, how do you find the time to play the piano and compose and make board games and draw architecture and design buildings and models and write books? Well, you make the time. That's all there is to it. Okay, at 9 o'clock at night, at 7 o'clock, I'm going to the gym, 1 or 2 hours, and I'm gonna do that. Or I come back, I'm gonna play the piano for an hour. My next door neighbor upstairs is right there, and he can attest to what night playing. And then you make the time. You have to organize yourself. Organization and discipline are the two most important factors in achievement. And you need to do that. You need to organize your time. It's not just, oh, I'll do when I feel like it. No, oh, I'm going to be the artiste and just do whatever I feel. No, you'll never accomplish anything that way. The artiste. No, forget about that. That's a myth. You need to discipline yourself and organize your time and your life and achieve something and show others that you can do it. Show yourself you can do it. Because if you don't show yourself and if you don't motivate yourself to do this, you're never going to do it. And to forget about money and forget about, about prestige. That is a superficial, senseless, meaningless motivation. It's not a motivation at all. Money doesn't motivate. Look at people who have lots of money. Are they particularly motivated? No, they're not. They're sort of motivated to make more money, maybe, sure. But look how confined their lives are. Read about it. And you think, well, I'm too old to earn money or to do so. Colonel Sanders was 65 years old when he invented KFC. 65 years old. And he took a little pot of chicken around all over the United States to show people how to make chicken. He invented his recipe, 65 years old. He was a total failure before that. Bankruptcy. So was Abraham Lincoln, by the way. He went bankrupt 3 or 4 times, failed at in the Senate for 4 or 5 times. Then he became the president of the United States, and the rest is history. So you cannot give up. Look at Nelson Mandela. He was in jail for 27 years, pounding rocks. What kept him alive was a poem called Invictus. And I memorized that poem, out of the darkness that covers me black, dark. Anyways, that you've got to find a way to motivate yourself. How old was Nelson Mandela when he became president of South Africa? I think he was in his 60s or 70s. 80s, yeah, maybe. So, don't think that because of your age you can't do things. Don't believe it, because younger people are in the same boat. They say, oh, well, I can't do this, I can't do that. No, you can't. You can't design. I can't go out there looking like that. I can't. Well, if all of us designed our own clothes and went out there and walked around, just think what an incredible world this would be. You open up your door and you see a person walking down the street with boa feathers and inflatable balloons and things, walking down. It would be incredible. Every day would be an astounding experience. But no, I can't do that. I've got to wear my black outfit. I've got to wear my sweater, my Gap clothes, my Dolce & Gabbana shorts, my Calvin Klein T-shirt. What is this? Give me a break. That is ridiculous. And so are we so conscribed in our lives by brand names? I'm disgusted by it. And you ought to be too. And you ought to make a stand for it. Be a voice for these things. And that's what drives me forward.
You've been given a time capsule, and you can go anywhere. You can travel anywhere at any point in time. Where would you want to go?
Well, the usual thing is to go back and meet people that you think you could learn from. But really, and I think, okay, Leonardo da Vinci, Genghis Khan, Tesla. I would love to meet all these people. Gandhi, many. Imhotep, the Egyptian architect. But really, it's the future that I'm concerned about. Those were things in the past, and they're really kind of irrelevant to us now. We have a whole new set of challenges. We don't have much of a future right now, with the ecological and economic collapse looming over us in about 8 to 10 years. And I'm not just saying that out of my own personal opinion. MIT and Smithsonian have been tracking our economic and environmental track for the past since 1974, and there will be total economic and environmental collapse in about 8 or 10 years, and we're right on track. So you say, well, God, how can you be, that's such a gloom and doom attitude. Well, I'm about truth. And what if they're right? What are we sitting around here for, just going about our business every day, going to the grocery store, buying food? Yeah. No, you got to do something with your life. You have to be a voice for that. And so I'm more concerned about the future than I am with the past. Sure, I would love to meet Leonardo. I'd love to meet Edison. To meet ancient people. Genghis Khan is my favorite. But no, I'm concerned about the future. And so let's put away the past. We can learn from the past, historically, but it's the future that is the biggest challenge. So I'm more about facing the future.
This is a question from the audience. Do you ever relax?
Well, I find music to be relaxing. I find writing poetry to be like. I actually find creativity to be relaxing. If I'm designing a building, it's relaxing to design it because you are outside of yourself. And so but relaxing in the sense of doing nothing, I can't. I really refuse to do nothing. I mean, I sleep a lot. I try to sleep as much as I can, and I try to be quiet as much as I can to relax. But as far as uh, relaxing, no, I would say that I'm not a relaxed person in the denotative sense of the term.
They said you spoke about your shoes. What's the significance of the rest of your outfit?
Yeah. Well, my outfit is designed by myself, and I work with a person in China, and we make these clothing. For instance, the cape. The cape is a wonderful moving architecture piece because when you're cold, you can wrap up. When you're hot, you can open up. And I have this harness here that I invented myself. It's buttoned to the top of my cape because one of the downfalls of cape is when you move your arm around, the cape falls off your shoulders. But with this chest plate, this chest harness, which is attached to my belt, I can move around. It can fall totally off my shoulders, and it'll be on me for good. Also, my pants and you notice these ventilation panels here and here and underneath. They are in the parts that keep when you sweat. The air goes in and keeps you cool. So my clothes are like moving architecture, and so I designed them with that purpose. And so everything I do has a purpose and a function, and that's part of being creative. And so why not? Why not apply yourself to every part of your life? I'm making a pair of shoes now at a place called Shoe Renew in Berkeley, made out of hemp, and they have ventilation areas. So when you step, air pushes out, and when you release your feet to walk, air is sucked back in. So I call them lung shoes because there's this breathing, inhale, exhaling of the shoe keeps your feet well ventilated to keep them from sweating. And it's hemp, so you're not killing a cow to wear them, or an alligator, or a pig, or whatever it might be. So that's all a part of it. So it's having moral commitment to something and applying it to everything you do.
I was curious if you felt like there was a particular point in your life that was a turning point for you that put in motion where you are now.
I think when I joined the swim team in ninth grade, well, 10th grade, that was a turning point for me because I was one of three people in the city that was eligible, well, that was asked to swim with the University of Minnesota swim team. Now imagine a guy in 10th grade that is going to keep up with college, Pac-10 college level swimmers. That was incredibly grueling and challenging, and I stuck with it. And I remember the pain and the discipline required and the endless workouts, and that really tempered my spirit, my character, to say, I can do this. And I think that stayed with me a long time, even to this day. So that was sort of the beginning. Before then it was track and field and other things that were more or less socially driven. My friends were athletes, so okay, I'm just going to be on the relay team or throw the discus, which I did, and things like that. But it was swimming that kind of instilled in me the sense of discipline and wanting to be the best. And that lesson stayed with me for the rest of my life and is there to this day.
Are there any experiences that you've had of adversity or challenges or even emotional turning points, perhaps even things that were distressing at the time, that you've been able to change your perspective with?
How about being expelled from 2 different universities? Now think of it. You're a young guy or girl, and you're going into you go to university, prominent university, Columbia University, New York City, and you believe you draw as you believe, you design as you believe, and people start to say, Eugene, we can't, we don't do this kind of work. We can't support this. You got to go to a place that will support it because you're wasting your time here. So, okay, so I go to another school, Oregon, in the West Coast. It's the same thing. They're actually more vindictive. They said, well, why don't you just be an artist, because you're never going to be an architect. And so, so here, think about now, just go back to when you were 18, 19, 20 years old, and the professionals are telling you that you are crazy, that there's no relevance to your work. Protecting nature, learning from nature is irrelevant. We want to keep nature out. We don't want nature to come in. And so what are you studying nature for? It's irrelevant. Now think of that. You're a little kid. You're just, 18, 19, 20 years old. And these people that you respect are telling you, you are crazy or no good. Well, you have to either succumb to that, which I've seen people do and become totally destroyed from it. Or you say, not only am I going to succeed, I'm going to crush you. I'm going to make it so someday you are going to be so embarrassed at what you just told me that you will never live it down. And I am going to get you. And so those kinds of things. I've also been married 3 times, by the way. And so, in fact, my ex-wife is visiting right here, my first ex-wife. So we're still friends. But divorce. I'm sure some of you have gone through divorce. That's a very emotionally trying things. And there were times where I built a building. I would come home at 1 o'clock in the morning. I think, oh God, this is so devastating, man. This is a lot of work, and I started crying. And here I'm in the dark by myself, and I think, geez, I never expected this. And then after a good cry, I think, wait a minute, pick yourself up, Eugene. Come on, let's brace up here. This is not going to be easy. So pick yourself up and let's go. Let's do this. And so there were lots of emotionally trying times, and they were very hurtful. Your peers telling you that you're crazy, your wives telling you you're crazy, even my children. I have 2 boys and a girl. And I remember when they were younger and I was wearing, capes and things, they said, Dad, could you walk over on the other side of the street, please? Because I don't want my friends to see this, So your own family, you're ostracized by them. And so fortunately, my wife is very understanding. And she, in fact, with Sam, started the community garden here in Emeryville. And so there's all sorts of emotional and sociological, very devastating, what I would think be devastating to a typical person. But you just have to stand up and say, wait a minute, brush yourself off and say, wait a minute. No, I am me. I'm not going to let these people, these prejudicial, narrow-minded, short-sighted people get the best of me. Oh no. No, and someday I am going to destroy you. That's what you've got to do. You cannot be the victim. The bully mentality, that's a bully mentality. The bully and I know I've learned this in the ring, that bullies they can't stand up for themselves. They're all talk and no action. So next time you are bullied by anybody, you just take a stand and you just watch them cower in front of you. Because to fight takes a lot of energy. People are lazy. They don't want to go out of the way to really fight somebody. They're all talk. And you just say, okay, let's get it on. Let's have it right here. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. Oh, okay, I was just kidding. You've got to take a stand for something. Don't let yourself be victimized by your life, by society, by culture, by your friends. Oh, I'm old. Well, we can't do that. Let's walk to the Bay Area, the shopping mall. Let me walk. Oh, no, we're too old. My bones are too brittle. My knees are gonna hurt. Always excuse, excuse. We live behind a diaphanous curtain of excuses and demeaning ourselves. And we have to stop that. We have to stop this life of excuses. How many excuses we give ourselves every day? Stop it. You've got to take a stand for something. You've got to be out there and do it, and you've got to do it as good as you can. Don't drive me to the Bay Mall. I'm walking. I'll ride my bike. Be alive. Don't take the elevator. Take the stairs. I go to, I'm just coming back from the airport. I take the stairs everywhere I go. Oh, look at that guy. He's taking the stairs. Well, they're in the escalators. Well, so what? Yeah, I'm going to be 150 years old while you're dead in your coffin. So, how about that? You've got to just grab of life, take hold of it and be yourself and don't be afraid. And catch yourself when you start to make excuses for yourself. How many piles of excuses we have. It doesn't matter how old we are. I hear it from people at gym. I hear it from my interns. I hear it from high school people. Oh, I'm a little fat because this is the way I grew up. And what do you mean? No, you can deal with it. You can do something about it. One of my former interns is right here. He's now a renowned fashion photographer, and I'm pushing him to get into film too. And if you don't mind me saying so, I like to use their story because one day he was very unhappy in my office, and I said, Leon, why are you so unhappy? He said, because I don't know if I really want to do architecture. I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, I'm kind of interested in photography. I said, well, do it. Get out of here. This is, I didn't say get out of here, but I said, okay, you're interested in photography, get a camera and do it. This is the wrong thing. This isn't really your passion. So go on and follow it. Well, a few years later, he called me from Paris, and he's got work with, different Marie Claire, with, different renowned magazines. And now he's a global photographer. So, it's just follow your passion. You've got to follow your interests, and you got to find your interests. You're probably asking yourself, well, gee, what are my interests? Well, find them. Don't just, sit around and read books and, go to the library or play Parcheesi or whatever you do, go out and do something with your life. Change the future. We need it. How badly we all need it. Be an example of change. And you might say, all those excuses might come into your mind saying, oh, gee, but, that's really interesting that, Dr. Tssui or Eugene says that, but, it's not that easy. How much of our pattern way of thinking, I can't, no, that's too much, I don't have time, not. You've got to catch yourself and do something and fight that. Be alive. Don't just succumb to your own excuses. That is very important, and that is getting beyond age. You are the age that you believe you are. But if you don't, I don't think about age that much. I just do what I want to do, and it doesn't matter. Well, if I have to pit myself against a 20-year-old, I will. They're usually poorly and out of shape anyways. So and they don't know what to eat anyway, and they haven't experimented. Here you are. What's youth? I can outrun you anytime. Let's see you go 3 rounds in the ring. You'd be dead. You wouldn't make it past the second round. Come on. Come on. Let's tell the truth here. So this is, you need to brace yourself and question and move forward with your life in a way that astounds you. Be extraordinary. Be astounding. And don't care what your friends say. Oh, what do my friends say about this? Who cares what your friends say? If they ridicule you, they're not your friends. And give them up. That's ridiculous. You have to be yourself. And because that's all you've got. That's all you have in this life, really. You say, well, I'm married, I've got a nice wife or a nice husband. Oh, that's fine, but you're alone. And the minute you face the fact that you are alone, alone means all one. That's where the name comes from. The root meaning of alone is all one. Well, be one. Be one with yourself. And see, what can you do? Ask yourself, what can I do? And you think, oh, well, pardon me, I'm crippled. I'm handicapped. I'm, excuse. I happen to know, I have a picture of a man. His name is Dustin Carter. He was born with no legs and no arms. And he's a champion wrestler. He won scholarships to universities. No arms and no legs. He just has stumps. They stop at about his elbow and his knee. And he wins. This is amazing. I oftentimes when I think I'm getting a little tired, I look at his picture and I think, yes. If he can do it, I can do it. And I have a friend in China who's called Half Man. He was in a drunken stupor and a train ran over his legs, and he's, they call him Half Man. He said, "Oh, I'm going to kill myself," and it's an incredible story. But then he said, well, "Wait a minute, I can do something. I can write. I can scrape myself on the sidewalk, and I can write characters and make phrases and sayings." Now he's the vice president of the Calligraphy Society of China. And he's a motivational speaker. That's the kind of people we need to, when you think I can't do this, I don't have the strength to do that. Think of these people. Think of Nelson Mandela, breaking rocks for 27 years, sweating his butt off and surviving on a poem. Think of that. So don't you dare make excuses to yourself. You need to pick yourself up and change the planet. And I don't care who says what. I don't care what your parents say, what your friends say. You just go out and do it. And you design your own clothes and your own car and your bicycle and your knapsack, whatever it is. You do it little by little. And I tell you, when you design your clothes, you are fighting against the throwaway society, because you never will throw your clothes away. I tell you, you will have your clothes for your whole life, because you put so much energy and ideas in your clothing, you're not going to throw them out. And I've actually had people steal my clothes from Watergate twice there. But anyways, so you're defying the whole momentum of the throwaway society when you design your own clothes. So, so design your own car. You're also defying society when you design your car. Your phone, whatever it might be, you design your own and see what happens. And you become a much better person for it, too. And pretty soon you start to think, gee, if I can design this tripod, maybe I could design a bicycle, too. Or then maybe I could design some shoes or, whatever it might be. It grows. It starts to expand. And probably, we all know that. So go out and do it. And please don't go home and say, "Oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that, Dr. Tssui interesting? Isn't Eugene? And he's one of us in the Emerville Watergate. Oh, isn't that pleasant? How nice." Don't say that. Say, now, what can I do here? What can I do for the world? What can I do how can I better Eugene? One of the things that drives me, you're talking about motivation, creativity. When I see something by Picasso or Edison, an invention or something, I say, hey, I can do better than that. That plate designed by Picasso, I can make a better plate than that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you I can do better than that. Or a song. Says, oh, God, these songs about love, 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 I'm sick of it. Let's do something else. Let's make a new song. And let's make it in odd time. So, okay, let's go out and do it. So, if you don't like something, then make it yourself. Make it better. You're here to do something. Well, go out and do it. And don't be confined by the framework of your age or gee, I can't do this, I can't do that, or what will people think? Please don't live like that, because you're going to waste your whole life away. And then on your bed, you're going to regret it. I tell you, I want to make sure that when I am dying on my bed, that I will not regret my life. that I tried to do everything I could to make my dreams come true and to make the impossible possible. And I hope you will too. So think about that seriously, and don't think about, oh, isn't this fun? No, let's go out dining. Forget it. Create something. Don't just eat. Don't just go and have nice small talk with your friends. Oh, let's play cards today. What good is that going to do for the world? No, so and if you have children that are accomplished themselves, okay, let's see you beat your children. I'm gonna be better than that. Oh, that's nice, but I'm gonna outdo you. Okay, let's see you do it. Don't be afraid. Don't live your life through your children. I frankly think my children, I can outdo my children any day, and I'm going to. So be the best you can. Because are you being the best you can? Sorrel, Apollo, or Chase, my daughter. Uh, Actually, my daughter, yeah, pretty good. But the other kids are, they're fitting into. Oh well, I want to get $1 million house. I want a Porsche, which he has, and all that stuff. Why are you buying that? It's ridiculous. What's this with brand names? Don't fit into that. Be yourself. Design your own car. For $30,000, you could design your own car and build it. So, grab the opportunity, make your own opportunities, and create your life the way you think it ought to be. And please don't conform. Don't be another provincial person. Don't go through life saying, oh, well, she's nice. He was nice. No, don't be like that. Stir up something. You got to make your life extraordinary. You're a human being. Be something. Don't just succumb to what society expects. Because they expect you to be a victim. They expect you to be like everyone else. No, you got to fight against that. And it's work. Yeah. So I hope I will have imbued something in you today. Because, you just go out and you do what you want to do. And use your anger. You probably have, it says, Gene's got some anger in there. Yes, I do. When you're 18 years old and your professors tell you that you're nothing, you're never going to be an architect. Boy, I'm gonna slap you. I'm gonna throw you out that window. Anger directed creatively is an incredible force. An incredible force. It's unstoppable. And so I use my emotional anger, my emotional motivation to guide me to do things, to push me forward. And you should do that too. Open yourself up. Don't just be, oh, I'm a nice person. I'm just going to do whatever else. No. Stand up. Be a voice. Be somebody. Don't just sit there and be like everyone else. So please, I hope this time together has affected you in some profound way, at least made you think seriously. This is serious business. I hope you don't see this as an entertainment, because it's not. I hate entertainment. I don't want to be entertained. I want to have an effect. I want to do something meaningful. And you deserve to make your life meaningful. So what is that? You find out for yourself. And don't say, oh, well, don't take for granted that everyone else is having fun. No, let's see you create your own fun. And question everything. And have the guts to do something different and be yourself.